Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group. Welcome to the end of day recap here. Let me fix my camera over here, which is sliding. Um, Hope you guys had a great trading day. It is Thursday, November 21st. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So I will try to make today's video short, but it's going to be tough because there's a lot of movers today, a lot of price action. Once again, a lot of momentum, particularly in growth areas. But if you look at the left of your screen, notice what the outperformers were today. You had a lot of energy doing really well, clean energy, uranium stocks, metals and mining stocks today. Oil services were up to 2.1%. So I thought that was interesting. Now the IBD 50 ETF, which I've been talking a lot about recently, that was up 3.1% too. So like I said, momentum continues. Those momentum stocks and high growth stocks continue to do very well. But I'm going to talk a little bit about breadth about today and so forth, and where there could be some opportunities some other places. So let me just start with where I kind of left off yesterday. I like to kind of make these end of day videos. I try to have some continuation from what I talked about the previous day. So the previous day, what did I talk about? I talked about being, how I'm a trend trader, and I basically just try to follow along with where the market is going to, right? Where the ball is going to, or down the field and so forth. Just making sure that I am following what the market signals are, and what they're telling me. So ultimately, you know whether this momentum continues in in some of these growth stocks, I think those will continue. I'll continue to watch. I'm participating in them as much as I can. I talk about in my Substack. I give charts. I've been giving about 4 or 5 charts a day. Basically talking about, like today, I talked about Datadog and the move off of Snowflake. Right. I talked about aerospace name like Joby, which I think there's a couple other ones too, small cap names that are doing well. Square, which I think is really interesting, which continues to kind of leg higher. So you look at some of these charts, and I'll just kind of start. I was just going to start here. Like what draws me to Datadog. Now we do have a VPOC that this has to get over, but I think I talked about this in yesterday's video. Just the fact of like, how this is really just kind of starting to kind of break this range. And again, it's not extended. If you zoom in, you're like, I missed it with this stock. It really hasn't done much this whole year. There's so many stocks like MSTR, which I'll talk about, which have gone up multiple 100% this year. But like, this is something it's been a bit slower. I mentioned Square, which is a stock that I started today, but look at the breakout on the weekly chart, right? And I talked about this, like the stage one, stage two, stage three, for names that are in downtrends, right? This name Square was in, after it did this move up, right? Here was your big decline, and you basically just want to wait until it bases, and look at what you have here. Right, you've got an inverted head and some type of inverted head and shoulders. Now, again, these things aren't perfect. Sometimes you get multiple shoulders and a head, but this is coming out of this. So again, this to me it looks attractive for names that this one is not at all-time highs. It's not even close to all-time highs. So I think that what's going on here is quite interesting in some of these names. And again, I view these as high growth names. Just to kind of go through a few other ones. Now, AXON has been an absolute beast, but typically what I tend to watch for is when a name, and this is a name that I've talked about a couple times this week, but again, had a big move up here, and again, you can't think about where it's been. That's not going to help you make money on the next day, and saying, oh, geez, I missed it. If I only could have bought it here. You got to think about where the stock is going to. And sometimes, like I say quite frequently, it helps to look at these 1 hour charts, right? Because then it's not as extended, and you can kind of see that it's just kind of beginning to take that next leg higher. So this thing was off to a really good start. And there's a handful of other names, like some of these I took some profits in today. This was, as I want to say, Arista Labs, but it's Astera Labs, right? I kind of followed through this one. I caught this one actually a little bit too early last week. And luckily, even though I kind of was a little bit early on it, it managed to do what I thought it was going to do. And what I was looking at too was this was this dotted line that I've got drawn here, a trend line, where it kind of was holding this. And I just thought that this was a good place to get involved. But really, I like to wait until it retakes the 5-period moving average. But $90 to 104 in a matter of a couple days. This is what makes growth stocks and momentum stocks a lot of fun to trade because they do move very quickly, right? Rocket Labs is another one. And again, it's tough to, you can't be, in all of these names, but, Rocket Labs, since it had earnings, this thing hasn't even given back the 5-period moving average. So, this has been a very strong one. IONQ has been another monster stock. I mean, these are lower price stocks, but they're really moving. And look at the momentum in some of these in these areas, for today. Just a few other ones that I'm just going to go through really quickly that I think are also interesting. Again, these are names that had good earnings. This Flutter is trying to take out the highs. Is trying to move higher here. Look at the consolidation here. Again, it may not be ready yet. Some of them are not. They're not going to be perfect. They're not going to be all the textbook. I know some people are watching Zillow. Zillow's got a new got a lot of momentum. I am not in this one. I did not trade that one. Affirm continues to move higher here. This is in our TTG trend portfolio. Upstart is a name that I did get involved in. There must be some selling that's going. There must be a seller in this name because it has tried to go higher a few times. And you could see when it gets to like the top, you see these big, strong green bars, right? And then it just doesn't. Right now, it doesn't have the ability to carry forward or carry through. So it's getting closer. It got to the top of the value area today, 74.30, and kind of backed off. So I'm still in it. I'm being patient in this one, but very nice. And then, of course, you have the software group. This is a name that we saw call buying, I think back on the 13th. This again, small cap software name, which those names are doing really well right now. Very nice, very nice move there. What else did I cover out of this group? Two other ones that I'm watching. Garmin, again, high flyer, right? Garmin, but same thing. Digestion goes below the 5-day moving average. Sometimes the 20-day moving average wants to catch up here. Sometimes it doesn't need to, and it move back above its 5-period moving average. This name needs a stock split because it's over $2,300. But what an animal this one is! All right, so I started this a little backwards because usually I talk about the indices first, but I'll tell you the indices have been very quiet. I think there's a decent amount of distribution going on under the hood. That's happening a lot in the bigger tech names. There's not been anything new. That's been going on now for a while. But let's go to NVIDIA for a second. Right. So I think also what's happening, there's some debate about this name right now. Yes, it is a market leader. It's just also it's the largest company now out there, I believe, by market cap. You can correct me if I'm wrong with that one, but I believe it's number one. If not, it's number one. It's number two. But it's going to move a bit slower because it's so large, right? So it's not going to move as fast as some of those names that I mentioned, like an Astera Labs or a Rocket Lab. Like those are going to move faster, just because. I think the takeaway from NVIDIA is that they're very bullish. Jensen is very bullish on on where AI is going, and seems to think that there's plenty of runway. That's my interpretation. Whether or not he's being 100% truthful, we don't know. But that's he's obviously been a very good leader over time, and I think that you kind of have to take what he's saying and say, hey, he's not saying that there's that AI is slowing down. Notice what happened here. It really explored the range today, like all over the place. It tried to break higher in the beginning of the day. Notice that the top of the value area gave a very good clue for the day, as price just wasn't ready to do that. 148.90, so perhaps some selling that's going on. and for some long holders, and it didn't break down either. Now it really kind of tested there, so it kind of gave an interesting day. So now let's talk a little bit about the indices, and I'm going to start with the Qs today. But the main thing is that I've been talking about this week is that the market has been bending a bit. So like bend but not break is where I'm kind of going with this. Just the fact that price is kind of getting down to the top of the value area for the month, and there's some buoyancy there. Buyers are kind of stepping in, but these first hours of the day are a bit volatile. So, you know, um, I talk about this in the trading room, and I talk about strategy a little bit more in detail. But hey, if you know, like for instance, like what I did today, let's see if I can bring up my trading blotter for today. But I try to sell some things that, are up huge, and like here's an example, like GEV was up, and I think the stock went up to a little bit higher than that, but this is a name that I got long earlier in the week. And again, like I'm taking my third target, $30 on a stock that I just bought the other day is not bad. I did take off this A lab, as I mentioned earlier, but notice how I'm doing this in the very beginning of the day. Why? Because a lot of times you have this, right? And we've been having this. If you go through the last couple days, like here was yesterday's price action too. We're swooping like so. There's something that's going on here. I don't know. I can't give you the exact reason, but it doesn't really matter. It's just kind of a pattern that's been going on here. But these are giving good buying opportunities because we're kind of holding in there. And once we kind of flip around, right, then we begin to kind of move higher. Now, again, notice like yesterday, it's the same thing. We're basically just coming back, even though we have this really heck of a rally at the end of the day, the last hour or so, we're just coming back to basically somewhere around the open. And then look at the price action today. Right. So again, like this was we got to the high point around like 3:15 today, and all we're doing is just getting back to the open for the day. So, again, you're seeing some gains in the after hours market. You're seeing some distribution in the first hour of the day, and then the market's kind of finding a footing. And I'll tell you, that's not bad, right? I mean, because it's giving you this opportunity every day for now, and this will change eventually, but it's giving you this opportunity for now to go out and like buy the dip a little bit. So I think it's a pretty darn good trading environment. Let's go to IWM next. And notice that this was a little bit more stable today, right? I don't think we had that same type of move like the Qs had today. But notice that this is now moving its way back up. Even better when you look at the mid caps. Mid caps are almost making a new high. So they're almost right back to where we were. So whereas the rest of the indices, the SPY's close, but you're seeing like it just seems like there's a little bit momentum there in the mid cap. So same thing here with the S&P. We held here quite, again, testing this top of the value area. And notice now we're back above the 5-period moving average too. So to me, that indicates some strength. When we look at the RSP, equally weighted S&P, right? Again, look at the big green candle for today. Kind of just shows you how strong the breadth was today. And I think that there was something at one point, it was like a 75% upside day today. So very, very nice. And also, in regards to, so I've kind of learned this over time. I started to say about that you don't need like very strong breath for like growth names to go, right? They're their own kind of animal. But if breadth does begin to kind of widen out and improve, and what I'm referring to is things like this. Let's see if I can bring this up for you really quickly. So this was yesterday. This is my note yesterday. Right? And this to see the open positions and so forth, you have to pay it. This is only $20 a month. So to me it would be a no-brainer. But we've been seeing this for the last again, this is yesterday. In terms of a little bit of poor market breadth, we've been seeing more new 4-week lows in the S&P than new highs. And you could see that down here too. See how that you see all this blue down here and less orange, or I guess it's supposed to be red. I don't know why they have those two colors like that, but anyway, maybe because it's easy to see. But there's been more new lows. Now, take a look at today. So, that's pretty interesting, right? Also, when we look at so, and by the way, notice how it's a lot of different sectors. Like going back to where we were a couple months ago, it was a lot of financials and industrials, right? Now it's a little bit of everything that's going on. Again, these are just this is just in the S&P. It's not Nasdaq. And then of course, when I've got a screen that I run too. When you look at new when you look at names that are breaking out of multiple time frames that are not super extended, right? I put a filter on this so that it's not, so that we're not looking at names really extended away from their value area. So they're a little bit closer. But you could see that energy is starting to perk up here, right? So if breadth starts to expand, you might see things like, here's the energy, which has been acting very well. I actually like the XOP because that's oil and gas. Again, they're not going to now. You have to bear with me here for a second. They're not going to move as fast as your Rocket Labs and your Astera Labs, but you've got some names that are doing pretty good. TRGP's one, right? This has been moving up very very nicely. Um, and there's a few of these. What's the name that I tweeted out earlier that I can't seem to remember the ticker symbol? LNG is the one that I'm thinking of, right? That's LNT, which actually looks like it's pretty decent. But so there are decent breakouts with momentum in the energy space. So the point of what I'm trying to get out here is be open to some of these other areas because you might see some profit taking in some of the high flyers. And you might see some rotation into things like some of the industrial names, right? We know that the financials have been showing, massive leadership for a while. And these things, notice, by the way, like look at the SPY chart, right? Or look at the Qs, right? Having this little pullback. Notice what's happened in XLF, right? In the financials. There's been no pullback, right? It just shows how strong they are. Now, again, most of them haven't had the momentum for the overall bigger financials, but clearly, as I went over in some of the fintech names, those are carrying some momentum. So I've gone through, I don't know how long this video is, probably about 15 minutes at this point, and I haven't talked about MSTR. I talked about MSTR for a couple minutes yesterday, and I just said that, hey, we've seen this. It doesn't matter what the stock is. Like, so please, like when you're viewing my video, like I have no emotional attachment to any of these stocks, right? Nor do I really have any emotional attachment to MSTR, but I know some people are going to. Why do I know that? Because people get attached to stocks, right? Especially retail. Well, it doesn't matter, retail trader, institutional traders. It happens. They get victimized on either side. For example, the same thing happened with SMCI, right? Folks can't let go of something like this, right? And but remember, you know, these things play out time and time again. Don't get emotionally attached to the stock, right? Right? It's all like Gordon Getko saying, right? Don't get emotionally involved, right? But once these things break, they break. And it's the same story over and over and over. And then they either have to base for a while and then go higher. Sometimes they don't. Like this kind of hung around its 50-day moving average, right? So again, there's some indecision that went on here, and then it broke lower. And that's it. That's basically game over for a name that's high momentum, that's been in an uptrend for a while. Some people use the 200-day moving average. That's fine. You could use that too and watch what happens, for maybe a buy at the 200-day moving average. But once these things slip like this, right, they usually, right, and they've had parabolic moves, they usually end the same way, right? So again, I'm not making a prediction here because it's just checked back to the 5-day moving average. But look at the volume in this. So do not over. So all I'm trying to say, and I'm just trying to help people, right? I'm not trying to say anything negative about their stock. Just understand when it changes and why not why is it easy for me per se to not have any emotional attachment to this stuff? Number one, I've been doing this for a long time and I've seen these things happen all the time. It's great to make money on the way up. You just have to be aware of when the story changes because these are story stocks. Number two, right? So I said I've seen it happen many times before, and I think because I've been doing this for a long time, but um, number two is you have countless examples from this happening. So, watch what happens on these things when these things begin to break down. Again, I'm not saying it's the end, but this is a parabolic move, and I wouldn't be surprised if it starts to break lower. Now, again, you could look at these countless examples, right? Which was the one that I showed yesterday. I think I showed GRWG back in the day. This is one that went ballistic. Oh, geez, I can't even bring this thing back up. But they also don't fall. They don't use, there's usually some fight back, right? So here's another one, right? Not exactly the same type of volume. This is Grow Generation. This was a pot stock, right? And again, it kind of hung in there. So you had this big. So again, reminder that this is now like a penny stock, right? So here's your parabolic move. Here's your reversal bar, second down day, right? Then it fought back a little bit, right? So you think, oh, geez, maybe it's coming back up. But I'm telling you, normally once this happens like this, right? And the story kind of goes away. If you begin to break, let's say that 20-day moving average, right? That's your first oh no sign, right? And then there's a further breakdown. Another one too that was great, beautiful uptrend for a long time was Elf Beauty. Just beautiful stock, right? But notice what happened with this thing, right? Spent some time, and again, like this would have been your exit here on the 50-day moving average. Now it did something rare. It kind of went below the 200-day moving average, bounced back up, made another nice run. Now it broke below, right? Had a second attempt. So again, not exactly the same thing because there's not as much like speculation in this, but the same rules apply, right? Breaks the 50-day moving average, then breaks this, right? So, you know, I don't know where this is still an expensive stock. I know that there was a short report on this, but all I'm trying to say, it changes the um personality of the stock changes. So anyway, I'll leave it there. These are very interesting things to talk about. That's why I'm just kind of going through because, hey, listen, the market's very interesting, right? We've had a heck of a last couple of weeks with trading. We've had a really interesting year. There's a lot of stories like this, and some of them will fall. Some of them will go back. And another thing was this is the other thing I was trying to think of with MSTR that I couldn't remember is and a reason why not to get emotionally attached because there's so many other stocks out there. I went through a whole bunch of them, but you could continue to go through. There's a bunch other ones too. Like Carvana's another one too, right? Where the story isn't over. Just go on to the next one, right? Because there are so many of these things, right, that are showing such strength and I hope the market continues to do this. I wouldn't mind if I'm trying to get ready in case there is some rotation and come up with a watch list. I have to say I really liked what Deere did today, and I really like this. I put this chart on Twitter earlier about how Deere has basically been going sideways for 4 years. I love when stocks do this when they put everybody to sleep. For like a couple years, and then they resume their trend, and then they break higher again. So, and because again, this is not a stock I've traded in a while because I don't have patience to sit in something like this. But you begin to watch for the personality to change. So maybe the personality is changing in Deere. It's certainly something that I'm going to be watching. And also maybe what the industrials and energy stocks are doing. Guys, have a great night. Hope you had a great day. See you tomorrow.